wanting to go to space. I wanted to be an astronaut. I was about 7, 8 years old that I drew this picture. I'm from Iran. I was born in Iran, a place that didn't have a space program. No one took me seriously, but I knew I would make it happen. Lo and behold, 2006, I did it. I went to space.
This journey has been wonderful.
As a young child, I would sleep outside summer nights in my grandparents' balcony, and I would gaze at the night skies. I would look at the stars and wonder, what's out there? Are there other beings out there? It was sort of a place I could let my imagination go wild and look up there and imagine new worlds. Imagination is a very, very unique gift we have as human beings. And as we grow up, we forget about it. You can make the future whatever you want it to be. So you can imagine your future.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I know I'm joining you virtually. I wish I was there. I heard there was a really great party last night that I missed. So maybe next time, I will be there in person. It's an honor to be part of this conversation, this very important conversation. I heard all the challenges. It's not just Australia's challenges. It is a global challenge. And I know there are lots of good-hearted people who want to fix the problem, and I have hope that we can eventually get there. It requires a lot of patience. It requires an open mind and willingness to change. If anything we learned from COVID is that change happens whether we like it or not, and when we're forced, we find ways to adapt. So we need to look at this as another crisis where we need to adapt and make changes happen fast. I guess part of the reason I'm here with all of you today is maybe use my own experience, my life experience, to show somehow how against all odds, sometimes we can make the impossible possible. As you heard, I was born a long, long time ago in a country far, far away in Iran. And I really fell in love with the night skies. I fell in love with the stars and the mystery of the universe that surrounds us. It really got me interested to math and science. I guess I was one of those few lucky ones who let my curiosity drive me to something greater that has helped shape my entire life. I was fascinated with the stars, so I wanted to learn about them. I got very interested in physics and astronomy, and I loved sci-fi. I watched Star Trek growing up in Iran, dubbed in Farsi, and always imagined that by the time I'll be an adult, there will be a Starship Enterprise, there will be a Starfleet Academy, and I would be able to go join and become the science officer, the Spock of the Starship Enterprise. And of course, I got the opportunity, the rare opportunity, to go to the United States to go to college. And when I arrived there, I realized that the world that I imagined doesn't really exist. Instead, there has been only a few people who have gone to space through the government space agencies, and there was no Starfleet Academy to be found. So I ended up choosing a different career, one that you heard that is an important one, engineering. Back then, it was one of those fields that was growing, and I always wanted to fix things and create things and solve problems. I loved puzzles. I loved solving puzzles. So to me, engineering was one of those fields where you would get to learn and solve a lot of puzzles and fix things and build things. So fortunately, I became an engineer, a computer science major, and that led me to build a career in telecommunication and become a tech entrepreneur, a successful tech entrepreneur, and see how and realize the power of technology, being able to see how it can make a difference in people's lives. I'm going to date myself a little bit here. When I started, it was early days of internet. It was actually when I was in college, there was no internet. We still had punch cards. But through my career, I've seen how internet changed from being something that just governments and big companies or banks use to something that everyone could access and use. And just having access to that type of technology created so many business opportunities and really made a difference in a lot of people's lives. And I don't need to tell you, you just reach in your pocket and you take out your phone and you can see how communication, connectedness, and internet has really, become a part of the essential part of your everyday life today. As you also heard, it comes with social media and other things. It has its own dangers, but any technology is a tool that can bring good or bad to our lives. I really was fortunate to be able to be at this, special time where I saw internet grow and how businesses developed, and that has taught me a lot of lessons that I incorporate in what I focus my life. But it also helped me to succeed in building a company that I sold later, and something that I did that was different that I hope a lot of people consider, especially if you have big aspirations, big dreams, something very significant you want to do in your life. It always seems very difficult. It seems like there's always a reason why you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. Especially as women, we put a lot of burden on ourselves, whether it's the responsibility of the family, whether it's not having confidence in our own abilities because society has told us so many years that we can't do it, we're not smart enough, we're not available to do what it takes, we can't learn certain things, or we're not strong enough to do certain things. Whatever it is that we heard through culture, society, or maybe just belief system that somehow we've developed in our own mind, we keep ourselves back, and that has never served anyone, I think, except that we live with a lot of regrets sometimes in our lives. So when I sold my company, I'm one of those people that I said I don't want to have regrets in life. I want to live a full life. And I decided to go back to school. I decided that my love and passion has always been space. And now I can perhaps pursue a different path. So I completed a whole full career and a success story in tech. But now I wanted to pursue something in space to speak to my heart. So I went back to school, studied astronomy, and meanwhile met an amazing person who across the US, the other side of US in California, had dreamed of a competition to really change the way people think about space and to bring the cost of access to space down, and had announced a prize without a sponsor, a $10 million prize for people to build spaceship in their garages, in their backyards, in some place with a small team without government funding, and to fly to space and come back and do it again in 2 weeks to demonstrate that it's not just a museum piece, but an actual flying spaceship that can take 3 passengers or equivalent of 3 passengers to edge of space, 100 kilometers, and do it twice. Many people, many big companies told him he's crazy, told him it's risky, that's going to get people killed. He read about my passion and interest in space and fortunately found me, told me about it, and I became obsessed with the idea. As an entrepreneur, I had seen how we spend a lot of money with a big idea, and we hire a number of people and give them time to develop it. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it costs more, sometimes it takes a lot longer. And with the competition, what I saw is this opportunity where something that's big, risky, difficult to build, you can invite the entire world to compete. It was democratizing innovation in another way. And you ask the world to go build something to your spec. We give the spec. These are the things you need to accomplish. And then once they actually accomplish it, they win the prize. They win, you win, because you got what you wanted to build. And to me, that was an amazing way of actually accelerating innovation and lowering the risk of those edge technologies. And that's how I became involved with XPRIZE. And what I love to do, instead of telling you what we do at XPRIZE, there's a 1-minute video that I would like to play for you right now.
The XPRIZE Foundation runs incredible large-scale competitions around the world that set very clear, measurable, objective goals. The first person to build, demonstrate this capability wins the prize money, and the world gets the benefits.
Anousheh Ansari is the CEO of XPRIZE, which sponsors competitions to solve the world's challenges.
Competitions and prizes can actually bring innovation to solve not just any problem, but really big, challenging problems.
I think we're about setting a high bar. You want to set a goal for people that's inspiring, but it's also hard.
When we're designing an XPRIZE, we're looking for something that is audacious and achievable.
Goals that are far beyond where the industry is.
Problems that the markets have failed to solve.
To help people really dig into their imaginations. Creativity is everywhere.
We don't care who you are or where you come from. If you're able to accomplish this task, you win, and that's it.
1,000 years ago, it was only the kings and queens who could do anything on a national or regional level. Today, it's all of us. Anyone who's truly passionate, driven by a massively transformative purpose, can go and make a change in the world.
We are leveraging the genius of people from all over the world.
The tinkers, the entrepreneurs, the engineers.
People who are not satisfied with the way things are and know that it can be better.
It's all around hopefulness. It's all about collaboration.
Prizes are not about competition, they're about impact. And there is no better and more powerful tool to do it, in our opinion, than a prize itself.
I've seen things go from a paper plane to an actual spaceship.
We've seen private spaceflight revolution.
$300 million invested in the lunar economy. Over 10 million kids integrated into STEM education.
Technology that increased the rate of cleaning up oil spills.
Technology to help keep people safe.
To make sure everyone is healthy.
Feeding people, educating people, cleaning the air, exploring the oceans or space. We're changing what people believe is possible.
We want to have an ideal future, and it's up to us to build it.
So no matter what challenge you want to solve, join us on this journey. Just don't be satisfied doing nothing.
So as you see, I have the incredible task of running this amazing organization, and that's how I feel I can make a difference in the world. Because I know that our future will depend on how we use technology and making sure that it is equitable. I know this is the main topic of the conversation, and I think it's an essential topic. As a woman in tech, as a woman CEO in tech especially, I've seen how not having a lot of diverse voices around the design table makes a difference. I point out things sometimes that my male counterpart may not see it, may not feel it, not because they're intentionally being dismissive, but because they just, don't have my experiences. So if we're building solutions for the entire world, if we're building solutions to solve humanity's grand challenges that is felt in different parts of the world, we need to have the diverse voices of all the stakeholders at the table when we're designing. And I have dedicated a lot of my time and energy to make sure that I use my life story as the reason why young girls, young women, and people of different backgrounds should be interested in and excited about becoming architects of the future and participating in advancing technologies that will make our lives better. We only hear about all the problems around us. The problems exist, but we don't need to give up and throw our hands up and say, we can deal with the problems. I believe that we can solve the problems, and I hope the world joins us and joins me in this crusade against, all the bad things that are happening, whether it's, climate change, food issues, energy issues, security issues. We can solve them together. And if I learned one thing through my experience of being on the International Space Station and being able to see our beautiful planet from that vantage point, was that those maps that they teach us in geography classes are completely wrong. You see those colors and lines that separate us on those maps. But when you actually see our world from up there, you see that there are no lines separating us. There's nothing separating the countries except these imaginary lines that are in our head. And instead, you see one beautiful home for all of us, and us as humanity connected together and connected with this beautiful environment we live and we call our home planet Earth. So I'm happy that I'm here with you and joining you on this conversation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Dr. Ansari, thank you. Please. My goodness. Anyone in the room that has questions, let yourself be known. We've got some mics that'll come and say hello, but thank you so much. It's so exciting. XPRIZE, I remember when I first heard about it, it just kind of did that thing that makes you feel like an excited kid again, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I could do that maybe. And if I did, I could get $10 million, which is in reality, it's a drop, right, in the ocean. But it's a drop that is inspiring and gets people motivated. How successful has the XPRIZE been?
We've been very fortunate. We've launched so far about $300 million worth of prizes, about 28 competitions. We have 6 active competitions. The latest prize we launched was on Earth Day last year, which was the largest private prize ever of $100 million to extract carbon from the atmosphere or from the oceans and do it at gigaton scale. So this is what we really need to combat climate change. And we wanted to bring a lot of attention and capital, frankly, to innovators so they can build these scaled-up solutions. That's one of the advantages of an XPRIZE. So the $10 million prize itself, yes, it will help get things started, but the $100 million, for example, in the Ansari XPRIZE brought in $100 million of investment in the 11 teams who competed for the competition. So this is another multiplier effect that is great in a competition.
I wonder, you were talking before about, you got to see the rise of the internet through, as an adult, which is, I'm just probably a little on, I was still at school when I was starting to deal with the internet, but I still remember a time before and a time now. And you're right that, it's an incredible technology, not good or evil and can be used either way. I wonder, what are the checks that you've got in place to make sure that tech isn't bad? Because there have been plenty of examples of technology that wasn't created with good intent, even if, or not necessarily with good intent, with making sure that it didn't have bad outcomes as well. I'm thinking things like coal-powered stuff, which was incredibly amazing, but also put us directly in the trouble we're in now. How do we protect against that?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and something that we think about a lot, especially because we are looking, 10, 20 years into the future and technologies that are far out in the future. So we don't know as much about some of them. However, one thing that I mentioned earlier, we do make sure we have diverse voices in the room when we're designing prizes. Having those diverse voices is essential for us, whether it's from different technology background, different industries, different genders, different age groups, different geographies. All of that are very important to us. We also do extensive research to understand where the problems exist, and with new technologies, how would the societies impacted by the problems and with the new solutions will change, and if those changes will have a diverse effect or favor some part of the society versus others. We have ethicists who consult with us on some of our prizes, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. We're right now looking at quantum computing and quantum applications as an area for future advancement. So we keep all of that in mind. The other side of this that's very important, which is not core to our work, but it's essential, is smart policies. So we create collaborations and partnerships with policymakers to educate policymakers. One of the issues we have, I think, policymakers sometimes are caught off guard. A lot of these technologies are complex. If you don't have the background, you may not understand the full implication. So really getting ahead of it, making sure that policymakers are aware that they have tools, that we become a resource for them to answer their questions and educate them about, short-term and long-term implications of certain technology, and hopefully help them develop smart policies where it doesn't stifle the good applications of the technology, but creates way that we can detect or safeguard against wrongful uses of those technologies.
Yeah, well, we've got a question actually from the room for you as well. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks so much for that. What a great way to start today. My name is Janine Herzig and I work for SEEK International. I've been a part-time space nerd all my life, but that's become a little bit more for me in recent years. So I live in Adelaide, where we have the Australian Space Agency and the Andy Thomas Space Centre. So I know enough to be dangerous now. I've just completed my space mining fundamentals course. And but what struck me, many things, but when you spoke of the view of the Earth, from space being, one body together, I think that was just a beautiful expression. Some of the, people often say things like, why are we spending all this money, trying to get people into space? And I try to explain that, we can solve so many problems for the Earth by understanding more about what's happening in other planets. And as a metallurgical engineer on Earth, I can't wait till I can get to Deimos or the Moon and be extracting resources and solving problems there. But one of the most interesting things we covered in the course, we did space law, space ethics, architecture, psychology. And I think that's the one that really interests me, is the effect of being deprived of, green spaces, of plants, and as well as other stimulants that you get, when you're in a contained environment like that. So what's your experience been there of, just the psychological effects of that deprivation?
Yeah, I want to know, did you have like pot plants? Like, a bit of green around like you would in your COVID office?
I wish. No, we don't. It's, to be honest with you, I think each person's experience is different. I was one of those kids who always dreamed of actually living in space. You could ask, why would anyone want to live in space? Or, we talk about colonizing Mars. Like, we have a beautiful planet here. Why would anyone want to live on Mars? So it's one of those personal interests that comes about. So for me, just the experience of being in weightlessness, being in space was so amazing that I didn't feel the deprivation. Also, I only was in space 11 days, so maybe if I was in space for a year, things would be different. But I talked to a lot of people because I'm very curious, and I think that's one of the essential things that we want in people, curiosity and imagination. I asked a lot of questions. So I had crewmates on the space station who had just finished their 6-month stay. And I asked them, what do they miss the most? So I remember the things that I remember the most was that the smell of trees. One of my crewmates, Jeff Williams, said that he would go for runs in the morning and just being in the woods and the smell of the woods and pines and the smell of rain. So he talked about the smell of things a lot that he missed. The other thing he said he missed was quiet, because on space station you have all these computers and fans and everything going on all the time. So there's always this wide noise, this hum that's happening all the time. So it's like I miss just silence and quietness. So there are things that psychologically really impact. And I think when we talk about long duration flights, going to Mars, especially not having Earth right in front of you all the time, and colonizing Moon or Mars, we need to think about the psychological effects, but also technology in terms of some substitution. Virtual reality has been talked about, creating green spaces that contain green spaces that will be a source of food, but also a source of just that stimulant that you were talking about. So there are a lot of discussions around that's happening.
I love that idea that, like, you're in the middle of absolutely nothing and silence is the one thing you crave. That's brilliant. Oh, Dr. Ansari, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, you are literally the person that 8-year-old me wanted to be, and I'm so stoked for him that I get to talk to that person. Thank you so much for joining us today, and congratulations, serious congratulations on everything the X Prize is doing.
Thank you so much. I hope to have you join us at teams or compete in our competitions in the future. Thank you for having me.
I'm there anytime, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Anousheh Ansari.